Hey all, Ron here from Military Images Magazine with a new episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail. Today, I want to take you to 1884, almost 2 decades after the guns of the late Civil War fell silent. Captain James Ford Zediker, he's pictured here, of the 12th Iowa Infantry, joined surviving veterans at the regiment's second reunion. The 41-year-old officer had traveled all the way from his Nebraska farm to Manchester, Iowa for the 2-day event. He's pictured long before that time during the war itself, wearing the uniform of a first sergeant. You can see his chevrons and his lozenge in the center, marking him as a first sergeant. He's also wearing the veteran's stripe on his lower sleeve, which he got when he reenlisted. And you can see a small shield on his chest, a pin that he wore, revealing his patriotism. Back to 1884, on the second day of the reunion, on May 22nd, Captain Zedeker stood before the crowd to deliver a 10-minute speech entitled A Soldier's Attachment. Though he worried aloud that the time allotted was not nearly enough to say what he really felt to his comrades, he met the moment with heartfelt words that recalled their trials and tribulations so long ago, what seemed like so long ago. A synopsis of his speech was published in the official reunion record, and it goes like this. The attachment of old soldiers for one another was formed on the field, in the camp, and on the march, enduring privations under the summer heats and the chill blasts of winter, made strong by hunger and thirst, and hardships endured together, by danger and suffering, by the loss of comrades left on the battlefield, by sufferings in southern prisons. Is it a wonder that our attachment should be so strong? A few more years, and those who meet at these gatherings will be feeble and few, but let us all, while any of us are left, instill into the minds of our children the same sentiments of loyalty and patriotism that actuated us. Zedeker came to his loyalty and patriotism through generations, dating back to German immigrants in colonial times. His grandparents settled in Pennsylvania before it became a state, and his parents relocated to Iowa before it achieved statehood. When his parents, Isaac and Elizabeth, moved from the Keystone State to the Iowa frontier, they brought young Zedeker with them and added 6 more children to their brood. He might have stayed on the family farm in Jackson County, which bordered the Mississippi River, for the rest of his days. Of course, everything changed when the war came, and when it did, then 19-year-old Zedeker joined the Army. He mustered into the ranks of Company I of the 12th in October of 1861, and thus began his attachment to his fellow soldiers, as he would recall long afterwards. The regiment in 1861 soon left for Benton Barracks in St. Louis to get some training before joining General Ulysses S. Grant's army for the twin victories at Forts Henry and Donelson's in February of 1862. Just 2 months later, at the Battle of Shiloh, the 12th and other Iowa regiments forever distinguished themselves as the Hornet's Nest Brigade for its determined, bloody defense of that position. The fighting ended here, with most of the 12th becoming prisoners of war, including Zedeker. They remained in captivity through the remainder of the year. 1863 proved a year of promotions of Zedeker, reenlisting as a veteran volunteer, as I mentioned, wearing the uniform here, rising in rank from first sergeant to captain, participating in the well-remembered Vicksburg campaign and small-scale, largely forgotten operations in Mississippi, Arkansas, Missouri, and Tennessee. These small scale operations that steadily chipped away at the enemy's strength and reduced its territory literally foot by foot. In Tennessee, while guarding railroads in the vicinity of Shiwali, the Iowans pursued bands of Confederate guerrillas disrupting the region. Zedeker participated in one of these raids and left behind an official report. His account is illustrative of those many actions far off the front lines of the major battlefields. Zedeker wrote, on the 28th of December, 1863, our Tennessee scouts came in and reported that a rebel lieutenant on furlough was in the vicinity of Shiwali, Tennessee. Accordingly, at 4 o'clock p.m., Captain Sombardo, in command of companies I and G, marched through the stockade with a number of scouts to search out the lieutenant. About 20 of our number were mounted. We crossed the Tuscumbia River, marched southward, crossing the Tennessee line into Mississippi. The night was dark and the roads muddy, but we continued marching, searching houses, etc., occasionally capturing a suspicious character, until near morning when we heard of a dance in the vicinity and, with increased speed, pressed on, eager to catch the prey. At 5 o'clock a.m., December 29th, we found ourselves within hearing of the music, and cautiously surrounding the premises, we closed in upon the buildings, but the rebels, discovering our approach, broke out through the doors and windows, some with arms, without arms, and for several moments a sharp and lively fire was kept up without, while the deafening screams of females were heard within. Finally, they surrendered, and the excitement being partially quelled, we learned the following results of our expedition: 1 rebel killed, 5 wounded, and 14 captured, with several valuable cavalry horses, arms, etc. Among the captured were a captain and a lieutenant. We arrived at camp at 9 o'clock a.m. on the 29th with 19 prisoners in all, and were highly complimented upon our success. Our loss was none, much to the chagrin of the furloughed rebels. I remain very respectfully your obedient servant, James F. Zedeker, Company I, Captain, 12th Iowa Veteran Volunteer Infantry. The 12th went on to serve in the Atlanta campaign and to fight in the battles of Nashville and Spanish Fort, Alabama, and garrison duty in Alabama before mustering out of the Army in early 1866. Zedeker returned to Iowa, married a woman named Julia Douglas, and started his own family that grew to include 8 children, 6 of whom lived to adulthood. Meanwhile, in 1871, the Zedekers moved to Nebraska and took up the life of homesteaders in Franklin County. Over the next 2 decades, Zedeker kept active, studying medicine and becoming an osteopath. That discipline focused on diagnosing, treating, and preventing health problems by moving, stretching, and massaging the muscles and joints. He also served brief stints as a clerk in the Nebraska legislature and representing his and surrounding counties in a constitutional convention. He kept up with his Army pals, of course, attending the reunion in 1884, where he delivered those brief but memorable remarks on the bonds of friendship formed in the cauldron of civil war. In 1902, the Zedekers had one more adventure in life when they moved to Washington State, where he focused on osteopathy, eventually opening the Zedeker Institute of Drugless Healing. He retired about 1920 and turned his attention to the church. In 1928, he entered the Old Soldiers' Home in Washington, where he died 2 years later of heart issues at age 87. He survived Julia, who had died in 1907, and a second wife, Rose. His third wife, Marietta, whom he had married a few years earlier when he was 83, and his children survived him. So thanks for listening to the story of Captain Zedeker and the speech he gave in the 1884 reunion of the 12th Iowa Infantry. That speech titled A Soldier's Attachment, as you can see by his experience in the big battles and the smaller operations of the war, really forged those bonds with his comrades. But thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail.